episode of the Auld Alliance Games podcast with Jay again. Today, I think we're going to talk about some more lore. We're going to touch on the subject of cybernetics because we did mention them in our very first blog post when we were talking about the
Yeah.
Galactic Alliance.
Yes.
The Galactic Alliance. Thank you. So if I remember correctly, we were following the downfall of the cybernetics because the virus took them out, and the Alliance thought that was a good moment to wipe them out completely. So if you would be so kind to take us from the very beginning, like when it all started, how they evolved, the golden age, like slightly touch up on the global virus again, and what are they doing now?
Well, I've had a lot of fun creating the cybernetics, which are sort of our robot people of the world, and basically every sci-fi property that I've ever seen that approaches sort of robotic life gaining and becoming an accepted civilization. Look at the Kalon from the Orville. Look at Data from Star Trek. Look at anything that tackles like androids as a culture. There is always they were built as servants. They started asking if they had souls, and suddenly the Geth are murdering the Quarians and all that. If you've ever played Mass Effect,
in movies a lot as well.
Yeah. So I kind of decided that it's one of those things that has become so tropey that it doesn't even really need to be said. So, for example, I find it analogous to if you've ever watched a Batman film or a Batman story where they never bought, they were just like, yeah, the parents got murdered, we don't need to see it, which has never actually happened. But so the history of the cybernetics is most of the stuff happens way before the setting of I Thought There'd Be Stars, where sort of, and well before humanity became a spacefaring civilization. Essentially, many other races, which we will get onto in other episodes, created basically robots and machines to assist them in doing many things, everything. And eventually, they started using artificial intelligence to give these things a bit more autonomy, get them doing the work without having to do much input. And eventually, as is the end point for all these things, the intelligence became autonomous. So they went, oh, these things are alive. We have created life. However, they've gone, instead of going for the, oh god, we gotta stamp it out, kill it.
Oh, fire.
Yeah, kill it with fire. The response was a lot more, hi, so you're asking if you have a soul? I don't know if I have one. Should we talk about that? It's basically
That's a very human thing to ask.
It's basically what happens when the philosophers have these conversations rather than the businesses or the soldiers. And I liked that idea because it meant that you had, admittedly, it removes conflict, which is sort of the heart of drama and the heart of storytelling, but we're talking about history here. So it doesn't necessarily need to have that. So it means that cybernetics began to eventually become a more condensed culture. They came together and they existed as not a central unit, because there was so much disparity. They are a naturally diasporic people because they were constructed by so many different races and coming from so many different places. They have come together as a culture, but not necessarily like a history. I think there's a lot to play with in that space. But at the moment, what we've got is some very large events, because after a certain amount of time, they became recognized, they got their own embassies, yada yada. A virus breaks out, a computer virus breaks out in a slightly hush-hush kind of outpost planet, and the cybernetics begin slaughtering everyone. This led to a basically the then Galactic Federation, which is the big established government before the one we're all dealing with in our current projects. They basically just went, okay, we need to deal with this. They put it down. The virus was eradicated. It was all dealt with. Everybody thought that was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
However, after the Galactic Alliance became a thing, which is the government that we're dealing with at the moment, who are, to put it in a nice simple box, kind of assholes. Some cybernetics started speaking out against them and going, hey, the way you started your alliance, which, spoiler alert, was by blowing up a planet, we don't like that. And so the alliance went, oh no, the virus must have come back. Looks like we've got to do a genocide. And so they essentially tried to wipe out all of these robotic people, claiming that this virus, and they also claimed that it was being spread through through the largest infrastructure that had been created in this galaxy, which was something called Legion Net, which is basically a network of take a computer, build it to the size of a moon, float it out, and connect them all up as basically a galaxy-wide internet. The Alliance went, oh, it must be spreading through Legion Net. Oh, it's all terrible. Blew up most of the moons. They're very fond of blowing up planetary bodies. And basically went, oh, looks like we control all of galactic communications. Whoopsie. Hey, spoiler alert, anybody, if a dictatorship ever says that, run. And so essentially they have been scapegoating cybernetics for many years at this point, leading to a lot of cybernetic peoples hiding or trying to go disguised or just fleeing to the outer limits of the galaxy for fear of persecution and death. And that's kind of a brief history.
Like, so when would you say that golden age was? When there was no conflict?
The golden age of cybernetics was probably between maybe 20 or 30 years after their emergence, their development of the singularity, and the first Alpha Collective revolt, which was it was the Alpha virus, they called it. And therefore they called themselves the Alpha Collective after they were doing that. Sort of between that point, because by that point they were a new culture. They were discovering so many things. They were for once in their lives licensed to create art. I'm talking actual art, not the AI regurgitation that we have these days. Like, we're talking creatures with actual
feelings,
almost provable souls, but emotions that they wanted to express. After the virus, their things changed. The attitudes towards them changed a little bit, because when you've had an entire people turn around and start murdering everyone, it becomes hard to view them without suspicion again. And they faced not necessarily persecution, but they had lost a certain amount of cultural appeal. Which I'm not saying that was right. I'm just saying that's what happens.
So during their golden age, did they already have a status, like, where they recognized as a species / race, whatever?
Yes, they were. However, they were in fact, they were the only species that was recognized, had its own kind of political embassies within the Galactic Federation, that didn't have a defined home planet.
Yes.
They had, unlike humanity, so much later, as we've already discussed, they weren't given any planets. They just kind of were like, we exist, we're everywhere.
Could they then be separated into, I would say, like, manufacturers or stuff like that?
They tended to identify less by manufacturing and more by sort of the cultures that created them. Because, as a lot of us have seen, it's very much God makes humanity in his own image. Species made cybernetics kind of in their own image, so you can kind of tell what species that a cybernetic was constructed by, because they share similar traits. But things started to get weird when cybernetics started manufacturing each other, which was their sort of equivalent of childbirth. And their designs became fascinating through that adaptation.
Okay. And in terms of like current tropes that we see in movies, would you say that in your universe we can find the same? For example, the free robotic laws. Is it something that you have in your universe?
Asimov's 3 laws of robotics they're a good guide for how machines should function as servants.
Mm-hmm.
So cybernetics in general kind of don't really they conformed to like a version of Asimov's 3 laws when they were still just machines, when they were still being before their emergence. But when they started becoming actual people, those laws kind of can't really apply anymore.
Okay. And so when they gain a conscience, if I can put it that way, you said that they come in many different forms. Would you say that when machine gets a conscience, they try to like change their envelope and move into something that has legs, or do they stay, for example, as a freaking coffee machine?
Absolutely. I mean, the modification of one's own body is central to like a lot of self-expression. Admittedly, I say that as a guy with no tattoos. But you know, like if you could, like if your body was entirely, you know, detachable and remodelable, if you remove any kind of like Ship of Theseus questions, wouldn't you be like, oh, I want a cooler arm, I'm gonna replace the arm with a cooler one, since it's not actually going to cause you any long-term damage.
So it will be a bit like what we saw in the movie Anita. No, is it Anita? It's a world where humans can enhance themselves with cybernetic parts.
Alita, yeah, Alita Battle
Alita.
Angel.
Yeah,
An
yeah.
adaptation
So
of
would you
that.
say it's a bit like that for machines?
Sort of, a little bit like if you look at kind of all the old cyberpunk stuff where everybody has, you know, they're borged out to shit, but they were machines to start with, so it's less body horror-y.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
So then, if for example a coffee machine wants to get 2 legs, then we assume the role of a coffee machine then in the world after that.
It's very interesting because when like every single person on this earth has at some point gone, what is my purpose?
Yes.
That question doesn't necessarily exist when you have literally been built for a purpose as originally a machine.
Algorithm.
Yeah, like I was made to serve coffee. So at that point, the question becomes, do I like my purpose? Do I want to continue with my purpose? And that question becomes incredibly complex and differs for every different cybernetics. Sometimes that coffee machine be like, yeah, I kind of like being a coffee machine. I like, you know, people coming up to me looking like shit, and then after I help them, they go, oh my god, I can face the fucking day. And some of them went, you know what? No, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to serve people in a line all day. I'm going to go and be a fashion designer or something.
Okay. So would you say that later down the road, cybernetics would create coffee machine with like one single algorithm that cannot evolve? So coffee machine stay coffee machine?
Yes. It was not every machine became sentient.
Okay.
Like cybernetics always there's a big thing with them about making a different there's a big thing with them about making a very clear distinction between cybernetics and machines.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you still need machines to do a thing, and they're not. And having a fully autonomous AI robot creature standing there and someone asking them, do you empathize with the toaster? Is probably a bit like talking to a person and asking, hey, do you empathize with bacteria? It's like, it's a thing that is on such a different evolutionary level to you that it's like,
Yeah, but Jay,
sure?
don't forget, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
And the superconductor is the powerhouse of the cybernetic.
Yes. All right. Well, that went really deep and philosophical.
That's what happens with robots.
Yes. So after everything went down and they were forced into hiding, so it's our current game, right?
Yeah.
After they will be stars. So Sully and Jeffries will definitely encounter sentient machines, right?
Maybe they will, maybe they won't. You'll have to play the game to
Do
find out.
they have a few aboard, or is
They
it
will.
too?
The two of them would definitely have met Cybernetics in their time. Weirdly enough, Jeffries is more likely to have than Sully, since Jeffries comes from like a way out on the outer rim of the galaxy. Like he's a country boy. So if there were likely to be any kind of pockets of Cybernetics kicking around, he's more likely to have met them than Sully.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that will be all for today's episode. That is already very long.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for staying with us, guys. And until next time, until next theme, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.